In this tutorial, I'll demonstrate how to use embedded style sheets as well as inline and external style sheets. So here we have a HTML element created using the opening and closing div tags. There's some content in there, as you can see on line 11 and 12. Now, this content could be other HTML, it could be image tags, it could be hypertext links, and so forth. So in this opening and closing div tag, it would just work accordingly with my CSS depending on that content. So I'll go ahead and just do inline right now, and I've shown this before, but just remember that when we use cascading style sheets inline, that the style is actually an attribute now. So I type style equals, and then we have our attribute value. And then we can have a color, and I'll make it, in this case, I'll go ahead and use a hexadecimal color, and we'll use a pink color, and I want to end that with a semicolon. So again, this whole property, property and value is enclosed between the opening and closing quotes, and I end it with the semicolon. Colon is separating that. It's a very light pink that you can see there. Okay, so it is working. Now, if I were to apply styles up here in the head section, the line number here would still overwrite it. That's actually the nature of cascading style sheets, is that an external file will work, but if you have content in the head section, cascading style sheets, so an embedded one, then that will take precedence over the external. And then if you have style that is located inline, like on line 10, then that will take the most precedence, and then that will overwrite the external or embedded file in the head. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go on up here into the head section, and I'll go ahead and place my cascading style sheets. Now, note that styles are not required to be in the head section of a document. You'll see them down below sometimes now, maybe even in the body with an opening closing style tag. But if you're going to put them inside your HTML like this, then you do need an opening closing style tag. Line 6 and 8 is actually an HTML element, so we aren't using style sheets quite yet. This is just telling the browser that, hey, we're going to kick into style mode now. Okay, so then I can just do the same thing as before. I can add a color, and here you want to reference the area, so I don't have a name for that area, so I just go ahead and call it div. And then I'll go ahead and add a unique color. I'm going to add, oops, the wrong one, the hash sign. And I'll go ahead and make a gray, I guess that's going to be a yellow, pardon me. And then I'll go ahead and add the closing curly brace. Okay, so now when I look at it though, like I said, you see it's being overwritten. It's being overwritten by that internal style. So that's still going to apply it as pink. So let me take that out. Oops. Let me take that out there, and I'll just remove that inline style. That's what I mean to say. Okay, now when I look at it, it should be the color. Let me actually change that. What am I doing wrong? Let me go ahead and give it another color then. I'll go ahead and just use this quick check just to make sure things are working up okay. Okay, there we go. It just wasn't refreshing quite right. Okay, so now we got the brown in there, and that's working correctly. All right, so that is an example of using embedded styles within the head section. Okay, lastly, I want to show how to create a style sheet using a cascading style sheet file. And you actually just create a new file. You can use a text editor, again, Notepad, Notepad++, Visual Studio, any number of editors. Just go to New, and you create CSS. If you're using Notepad, then you just create a new text file like you would with an HTML. And then it will create a new one. If you're using Visual Studio or Dreamweaver in this case, it'll usually add the character setup here. That's optional, actually. To get it to validate, you're going to have that, but it will work on any browser without it. Okay, so then in the code here, I just went ahead and added the div color green here, so the same rules before. I want to note one thing that's kind of cool, is that there's no opening and closing style sheet in an external style sheet. Okay, so in this text file, .css, I don't have opening and closing style. You just go right into that code, and that makes sense. The reason why it makes sense is because usually in the head section of the document, what we do is we actually reference that external style sheet. So here's how you're going to reference it. We have the link tag, relation style sheet, type text/CSS. Note that those are both attributes and attribute values. So it's a relation or rel equals style sheet, type equals text CSS, href equals styles.css. This is just the name of the file. So you could call it whatever you want. You could call it, change text color, right? You could call it that. You could call it my style. Just make sure your style sheet actually has that name. What you'll see is people will actually just call their file styles, but then it'll have the extension of .css. This is very important to have that appropriate extension. This tag here is standalone, so we give a space and then close it out. And then that should apply. You'll see that it makes it into green as I ask it to do in the external CSS file. Okay, so that's the example of embedded, inline, and external CSS.